Welcome, Fantasyland, to the GOAT District. We appreciate you guys tuning in on the weekly with us. Make sure you tune in to catch Ballin, Triflexin, Commissioner Eval. What's the other one? Half a milli Billy. It used to be quarter milli Billy. Now it's half a milli Billy. We're just going bigger, stronger. But a lot of goodness this offseason on the GOAT District Network. Make sure you tune in tonight, guys. We are talking 6 players, overhyped players that you can sell right now in Fantasyland. Opportunities and knocking. Let's get this thing rolling.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
All right, guys. Do you guys stop for a sec? Do you guys smell that right now? Can you guys? That's opportunity, baby. That's opportunity knocking right now. And if you have any of the players we're talking tonight, we're going to give you some serious options that can help you with your dynasty rosters, whether you're contending, not contending. We're going to give you the goods. As usual, on the weekly, I got my 2 GOATs, 2 of the best in the game, the man with the flow, and my man Theo. As lame as I had to do it. It was right there. How's it going, guys? How are you, man?
Doing good.
Doing great.
So, guys, tonight...
Trying to one-up me, are you, Theo?
That's it. Just slightly better than Dan. Feeling slightly better.
Nice. He was checking his hair before the show. You know, he looked over at Dan. He's the competition is there, right?
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Tonight's a big show because, you know, I think the 3 of us are similar in the sense that this time of year is where you can really get opportunity to mold your rosters and make moves that are maybe ahead of the game. And that's what we're hoping to offer tonight. Some of them we've already made ourselves. Dan and I have a team we share that we've made a pretty big move in the last week since we were on last. And, you know, I think we have a nice mix tonight, nice mix of players. Before we get into specifics, guys, and I'll go to you first, Theo, what's your general approach with, like, when we say overhyped players, what do you consider? Because, I mean, you can look at guys that maybe you think peaked out last season or have already peaked out, or maybe they just may have had their best season, or maybe they're just right now the price is kind of on the high end, and for them to, I guess back up that value, they're going to have to perform at the ultimate peak, right, of the possibilities. So where do you see an overhyped player? How do you define that, or what are the different ways that you might define it, and how do you manage them on your rosters?
So I think that for me, it's being able to take a step back and say, is this player at his peak value? And as soon as they hit peak value, you have to weigh the opportunity cost of keeping them or moving them. I don't think any player we're discussing tonight is a guy that's, you know, some, you know, obvious wash up guy that you're just going to pawn off on somebody. I think you're taking a look at guys who are peak value players, where you might be able to get more for these players today than you would a year from now, or even 3 months from now. And for me, that's kind of where I'm at. A sell for me is where I feel like I've walked away with as much value as I possibly can get for a player. And those are the kind of things I'm looking to do this time in the offseason. And I think we can also use redraft to our advantage and see where guys are going in redraft, because I think that kind of gauges the dynasty mind this time of the summer.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. And Dan, I'll let you kind of maybe go a little deeper on this, but you touched on it perfectly. And that's kind of how I saw this approach, whether it's the moves we recently made, guys we're talking about tonight. If you can pivot nicely from one of these guys, give yourself similar production, whether that's in 2021, in 2022, or depending on how you manage your rosters, but get a little cheddar on top, right, Dan? Isn't that kind of one way at least to approach this and really max opportunity off of it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, that's what you want to do when you've got those super, super valuable players. You really owe it to yourself and your team to decide, why are these players valuable? How much of it is hype? How much of it is actually backed up by on-field performance? And, if you're looking at, you're going, the stats are a little late in the pants, we need to think about whether this person really belongs here or not, then that's the time where you want to be thinking about who else can I get who's maybe a similar player in some way, maybe in several ways. Maybe it's the same type of athlete, maybe on the same type of offense or a similar offense, maybe, same draft capital, whatever the case might be. And you want to find that player who is at a lower value and then get something else added to it. Because there's a lot of churn at the top. If you take a look at DLF's Dynasty ratings, from month to month, there's even a fairly good amount of churn. And from year to year, there's a ton of churn. And you want to make sure that you're hanging on to those players who are actually going to stick at the top if you're going to have players at the top. Otherwise, you've got to sell them while you've got the maximum value possible. And, you're not just selling them for cheap. You're selling them for, everything you can possibly milk out of them.
Yeah, and those are all disclaimers about the guys we're going to talk about tonight. Doesn't mean we don't like these guys. Doesn't mean we don't like what they do on the field, what they do in fantasy. It's just that, you're kind of playing the value game with these dynasty teams, and that's the only way that you can keep competing every year and have, whether it's a guy like we talked about, like age is a big factor, but also, you look at guys with certain contracts coming up, a guy like Chubb, who may have, he could have made the list tonight, but he's coming at the end of his rookie contract. So what happens after that? Do you want to be kind of involved with that? Or do you rather go find someone who can give you a similar value, similar production, and then, like we said, add the cheddar? So we'll get into the details, guys. I think we rounded it off really nicely with, kind of the macro level that we like to look at before we get into the market. But before we do that, guys, smash the like buttons. If you're watching this right now, we're giving you guys basically, one thing I like to remind people about our show is we're sharing what we're doing basically with our rosters, guys. We all play, in leagues like on the FFPC, we all play with some serious players, like in Hardway, the GOAT leagues. And, these are moves that we're making. And I think what you'll find tonight is if you get ahead of it with some of these guys and you make the moves before the rest of Fantasyland kind of catches on, you'll be ahead of it and you'll be holding the cards in a lot of those situations and a lot of those leagues. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. I'll go to Theo first, man. You look anxious. I know you're anxious for this one. Who's your first player, overhyped player, that you feel is a good sell right now to get some serious value?
So it's actually a player who I really, really like a lot. And I think that, in redraft, I'll absolutely have some of him. But one player which I would consider selling right now is Cam Akers. Cam Akers is, I think, being valued at his peak for Dynasty. There was a recent $2,500 startup in FFPC. I believe it's the only one that's gone down so far. And he went 5th overall in that startup. I was not in this draft, but we have a couple of friends in this draft. And for me, it's showing that the dynasty community is valuing Akers really at a level we haven't seen for a guy that really hasn't shown it for a longer sample size. You know, Cam Akers had a very frustrating rookie season for much of the year. Then he started to take off a little bit towards the end. He had, I believe, a 70-yard game, and then he followed it up with a 171-yard outburst against the Patriots in a blowout win for the Rams on Thursday Night Football, which we all saw. It was the Cam Akers coming out party. It was a great time of the year for a guy you've been waiting on to break out. Then he follows it up with 131 yards rushing in a playoff win against Seattle. Then he follows it up with 90 and a touch against Green Bay. But Cam Akers has had 4 games of 70 yards or more, and that's it. We're kind of treating him like a guy who's done a whole lot more. I get buying a guy on the way up. And again, I'm going to have a lot of him in redraft, I think, because I think he is a very good value. But in Dynasty, you basically can get Jonathan Taylor payment for Cam Akers, a guy who hasn't done it for that long. We're all kind of projecting the Rams to take this massive step forward as an offense with Matt Stafford, and they very well could. This might end up looking stupid for me to say trading Cam Akers. But again, for me, it's people have visions of Cam Akers becoming Todd Gurley, the next Todd Gurley for McVay, and that might not happen. I think that if he fails to cross 250 PPR points this season, then I think that he will be getting drafted lower in startup drafts a year from now. So I would consider selling him if I can get a massive payment. I had one league where I moved him this past offseason, and I moved him for Antonio Gibson in a 1. There was a couple other smaller pieces, but those were it was a late 1, like the 110 and Antonio Gibson. That's kind of trade I would consider. And I think you can get a lot for Cam Akers right now. I don't think it's a guy that you have to move, but I think it's a guy where you might want to see what you can get, because you might be able to get an absurd amount for Cam Akers at this point.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
And just look at some of these trades here. None really jump out to me. But again, you're talking about a guy like there's a trade right there. You get Jonathan Taylor for Cam Akers and David Njoku. I think that's a trade I would absolutely make.
The Kamara. Sorry guys, I was on mute there. I thought I was talking, and then you guys started talking. I was like, how rude, man! Look at these guys. But even the Kamara move, like, if you're selling the hype per se, you're going for it. Not too bad, but you kind of like the pieces where you're adding. That's where I like to go with these.
I think that you could even start out with trying to get a little more for one. If you're going to go to an older running back, not old, but you can really ask for. Let's put it like this: there's going to be somebody in my leagues that like Cam Akers more than I do, and are going to be willing to pay a lot more. And the fact that he's going in the top 5 of Dynasty startup drafts right now, I think you really use that to your advantage. It's more of a price check to me. Price check him to your league. Maybe reach out to a couple people, see what they'd be willing to trade for him. You might be able to get 2 firsts and something else for him. You might be able to get 3 firsts for him. I mean, people are extremely excited to draft him, and I think you have to, take a couple shots and see what you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because Akers is somebody that's super hot on Twitter. When somebody's super hot on Twitter, it's always worth waving them around a little bit, see what you can get for them. And again, it's, as Theo said, there's just, there's not much there with the production. I mean, we all see the profile and we think and we hope and we know what, is possible with the Rams, but we're counting on a lot of different things to come together, and he's being priced near the top of his range of outcomes. So you need to think about, who else might be available with a similar range of outcomes. It might be as simple as just Antonio Gibson. Do a step down to Antonio Gibson and get a second rounder thrown in. something like that.
Yeah, I mean, my acre shares I got in rookie drafts. You know, like last year he was going kind of in that mid first. I know in the same draft I got JT at 102, and then I picked up at 106, I think it was, acres, going in that range anyways. But he's the type of guy that I'm not necessarily going to go buy him right now. I love acres, like acres, Gibson. You know, we talk about every week. These are guys that we've planted our flag like a million times on them. They're very popular, but that's also why they're on this episode, because a lot of people love these guys for this year. And we can even go and look at this Rams offense. And Dan, I know you're big on this defense, especially when we're doing best balls. You know, that's the one defense I know you don't mind going early. And I've taken that approach as well in certain drafts. I'm just wondering if people are expecting like a very similar season to last year, where they were the top defense, or one of the top. Were they the top three at least?
They were right up there. I mean, depending on your scoring, yeah.
Now, if this defense does not come back as a top 2 or 3 defense, maybe closer, whether it's top 10, top 15, whatever it is, Matt Stafford's coming in. Maybe they're not leaning on the run as much. You know, so there's questions there still. You can play devil's advocate where, look, you can play it as Akers has gained the value. You know what I mean? Like you've gained, it's like a stock that you bought before it blew up. You've gained your value on that stock if you drafted him. So now is a great opportunity to build more value on your roster with that gain and cash out on those gains, as opposed to sitting on it and then going into the season and maybe he gets hurt, knock on wood. Maybe the offense isn't rolling as well. And guys, let's not forget, Darrell Henderson is no schmo. Like he's one of my favorite, you know, kind of late, what is that, zero running back, you know, strategy that people love to label. But he's still young, still, you know, if he gets an opportunity, he's shown that he can, you know, kind of take that lead back. I'm not saying he's going to take over Akers, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of different ways. And the way I approach Dynasty is I'm looking at what are the possibilities? What are the chances that this happens versus this happening? And is there enough spread there? If there's a 2% chance of something happening, obviously I'm not really caring. But when there's wider numbers there, you got to look at all the possibilities. So that's why if you hold these guys and you're able to pivot, like we're talking about, you can really, really help your roster. And I think Akers might be right now the most overhyped, one of them anyways, that we talk about tonight, in my opinion.
And I think that was a great point you made about Darrell Henderson. Henderson was starting to gain a little steam, and then he got hurt last year. I think that obviously, I think it's Akers is going to get a ton of carries, but I do think that his value is also potentially hinges on his ability to get targets as a receiver. And I think Henderson could cap that a little bit. I mean, I think we could see like a Henderson have, 40, 45 catches this year, and kind of look at how they use Akers in the passing game. Akers looks great catching the ball. I'm not convinced that he's going to get enough targets this year to really offer you that smash value as a receiver. I think Henderson, he's not going to go away. I think Henderson is a very, very good backup, but he could get a little bit of work put in. McVay's talking up Akers, but McVay has shown a willingness to give multiple backs touches in the past. And with a healthy Henderson, he's definitely going to get in the mix.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Dan, who's number 2 on this list right now? I think Akers was a good start. I'm glad I went to Theo, because I do think he's one of the most overhyped. But these guys are uncomfortable, man. It's uncomfortable to have this conversation because it's safe to just keep these guys on your roster. Mm-hmm. It's safe to do that. Dan, who's your guy?
All right. Here's a guy I know you can sell for a ton. And everybody says he's a buy. I'm not so sure that he might not be a sell. We're going to go to number 2 on the June DLF Dynasty ADP, Jonathan Taylor.
Nice.
we all acknowledge he looks like he's got a ton of talent. His measurables are sick. His college production is sick. There's no question about that. What there is question about is what exactly is his role going to be in that offense. We saw him have a nice role towards the end of the year, but at the same time, he was also still sharing a lot with Nyheim Hines. And even though he had, a pretty good run to end the season, which I'm going to pull up here real quick. Here we go. So, he had a nice run to end the season, and we all look at that and say, yep, that's the future. But there are a lot of players who have a nice 4 or 5 game run at the end of a season, and they end up not doing as much with it as we think because there are other factors that we're just not taking into account. Tyler Higbee for one, at tight end, and when you look at this, okay, it's good, but 3 of those 5 weeks, he was just right around 20 points, which is good, but it's not great. He had 2 really great weeks. So the question you have to ask yourself is, if this is the number 2 overall player in Dynasty, and he's built it basically on a 5-game sample size plus, a skill set that we like, isn't it something that you might want to consider? Can I get that same skill set and maybe even that same production somewhere else and get a bunch more added to it? And, for me with Taylor, I think the answer is yes. I was talking with Theo's player that we should maybe think about Antonio Gibson. And Gibson is probably a good trade candidate for Taylor for a couple reasons. Number one, he's a lot cheaper, so you can get a lot added to him. I mean, you can probably get Gibson and a future first or more for Taylor. And then along with that, you've still got Gibson, who is a very good receiver, just like Taylor is. He's probably even a better receiver than Taylor is. He's on a very good offense with a good offensive line, with a heck of a defense. So he's got all those things that Taylor's got going. He's got the same, as far as being a physical specimen, he's got that going for him as well. And then you can take all that and, he's got the same things going against him, and that he's got J.D. McKissick, who is a possibility to steal his passing down work, just like Nyheim Hines is a possibility to steal Jonathan Taylor's passing work. To me, if I can pivot off of Taylor and I can pick up Gibson and another significant asset, that's totally worth it. Or if I'm on a rebuild, Taylor is one of those players that you can trade for just a ton of picks. So there are a lot of different ways you can go about it, but and there's no shortage of people who are interested in buying Jonathan Taylor right now.
Yeah, I'm just sorry.
Go ahead,
Theo. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think that there might not be a player that has more trade value right now than Jonathan Taylor in all of Dynasty. You're going to find some people that will pay more for a Christian McCaffrey, but I would say there's more people are going to want to go with the younger back in Taylor. I think, again, we love Taylor, but I think that right now you can get an absolute king's ransom for Taylor. There's people that would be willing to mortgage their future and pretty much anybody on their roster for him right now. And again, this is a guy that I'm taking in the first half rounds here in redraft. But Dan makes some great points. There's the threat of Nyheim Hines. There's the threat of Taylor just kind of coming back to earth a little bit. And again, he's being drafted like a guy who can be running back 1 overall this year. I think he can be, but I think that's going to be a difficult task. I have one league where I have an older team with, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyreek Hill, a few guys like that. And I had Jonathan Taylor, and I moved him this offseason in a package of players for McCaffrey. So I was able to get McCaffrey. Again, I think my window's a little shorter with that team, and I believe that Christian McCaffrey will outscore Jonathan Taylor this year. I think that Some people might argue against that, but I think that is incorrect. To me, it's a gap between the two. But in terms of trade value, I don't think it's there. I think there's some guys that really want that younger back, and I think you can go out and trade for a McCaffrey, or you can go trade for a ton of good players. Like Dan said, you get Antonio Gibson plus. That's something to consider.
Yep.
All very valid. Sorry, guys, I'm fumbling with my. I might have to go back to one of you guys to drop another player because my screen has a little freezing action going on. So my first guy I want to drop. I got a couple things I got to show on the screen. So if one of you guys are ready with a number 3 that you can slide in there while I get this set up.
You want to take it, Theo?
Sure. No problem. So my next player, again, another player that we all like, and a player that I think is a great value in the second round in redraft this year. But I would consider trading George Kittle in Dynasty. I think if you're a contender this year and you're going for a championship, then I think I'm holding on to Kittle. But if I'm kind of unsure about things, I'm absolutely floating his name out there. I think a year ago, he would have been most people's tight end 1 in Dynasty. I think now the positions become a little more kind of crammed together at the top. We've had Kyle Pitts go number 4 overall. He's starting to fly up like crazy in FFPC startups and in redraft. Darren Waller had an absolutely dominant season last year. He's about the same level as Kittle right now in terms of value. And I think that Travis Kelce looks ageless, where people might be a little more sure about Travis Kelce despite another year on him. He looks like a guy who's just not going to lose anything. So to me, it's George Kittle. If I can get 2 firsts for him, then I'm absolutely considering it. I worry about a couple of the names right behind him, like a guy like TJ Hawkinson, jumping and getting into that top 4 and making it even more jumbled at the top. I have a couple of concerns about Kittle as a player. We absolutely saw him smash in 2018 and 2019. He was 80-plus catches. He showed his unbelievable yards after the catch ability. But he's a mauler as a blocker. The guy doesn't take plays off. He goes full throttle all the time. I worry about a re-injury. Age-wise, he turns 28 this season. Which, as Dan is the tight end whisperer, Dan will tell you these guys age like wine, and Dan's absolutely right on that. But when you start creeping up to that 30 years old, you do see some fall off. Guy played 8 games last year. And again, he's a second rounder in redraft. It all makes sense. But against the line's blurring a little bit. And one other thing is, I think that Brandon Ayuk is absolutely the real deal. And a healthy Deebo Samuel, I think that there's a chance a little more jumbled for who's the number 1 receiver in San Francisco. I think that there's a range of outcomes where Brandon Ayuk is the number 1 target in San Francisco, and I think that could maybe take a little bit off of Kittle. Trey Lance could make that offense shoot up to the moon, but that doesn't necessarily benefit Kittle. So I would float him out there a little bit. See what you get. If I could get a TJ Hawkinson plus a couple of picks, I'm absolutely considering that. I have one team that is a rebuild, and I moved George Kittle for 2 firsts this past offseason. I was fine doing that. It's hard to replace the tight end position in the FFPC, but I have a little bit of reservations that I've kind of explained, and I'm interested to hear what you guys have to think about George Kittle.
I'll jump in just because he was a guy I almost used for this segment, and that's why I said to you, I'll kind of piggyback because I have like a specific situation, and you kind of touched on it. I think because it's so hard to get one of these studs, especially like in a tight end preem, and I'll even show what I did here in an FFPC, which is tight end preem, obviously. And this is a move I recently made. When was that? June 4th. So basically, for me, that's the caveat. That's like the is it caveat? Dan, you're my English professor. Is that what I'm talking about here?
Yes,
So
that is the caveat.
So the only way I'm moving Kittle, and Theo, you touched on two guys. If I'm in reno mode or rebuild, I'd consider TJ Hawk and Fant good pivots to Kittle. But I think as a contender, the only way that I'm moving Kittle is if I'm getting Waller. And if you'll see here, the deal that I made, I sent two guys that I think are good sells right now in Kittle and DJ Moore. I added Najee Harris, who I picked up in the rookie draft, and Denzel Mims. And I got Darren Waller, Dalvin Cook, Madison, and T. Higgins. So for me, I really needed help at the running back position just to solidify with Akers and Jonathan Taylor's a nice running back 3. It's not that I don't like Harris. This is a matter of ownership percentage, and also I have zero Cook. And for him to be what I consider, maybe my running back 3 in this offense, I love this move. But I'm showing this just to say this is my exception. Is as a contender, if you're moving Kittle, you got to be getting immediate production right away. I think TJ Hawk and Fant, depending on how you feel about them for 2021, could be fallback options as pivots. But for me, Waller is really the direction I wanted to go. It was the only way I was going to move him in that league, and I managed to get it done by adding the pieces that I did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things with Kittle and, tight ends aging like fine wine and all that is, a lot of them do age like fine wine, and some of them age like crap. Like, Rob Gronkowski, was great for a long time, but then when he fell off, he really fell off, and he had to take a year out of football to even start beginning to show glimmers of the old Gronk. And, that's really all we've seen is glimmers. And the thing that they share in common, Kittle and Gronk, is the fact that they're extremely willing blockers and tough blockers, and they're constantly going up against these guys, and putting their body on the line on plays where they're not a receiver, right? So anytime you've got a tight end who does a lot of blocking, plays the inline role a lot, I don't think they age quite as well, and so I'd be looking to get off them. I mean, with Kittle, I don't have a huge sense of urgency, as in, I don't feel like I got to move him this month or anything like that. But I'd sure like to move him before the season if I can, or certainly within the first month of the season, because there are some other things we got to think about with San Francisco too. You've got Trey Lance, who's going to be the quarterback there sooner or later. Who's fantastic with his legs. He's supposed to be a good passer as well. I think he will probably develop into being a good passer, but in his early run as a quarterback, I think that they're probably going to make the offense a little bit more conservative. They're probably going to lean on that running game, which they love to lean on anyway. And then as Theo was talking about, we've got a couple other really good receivers there. You've got that running game. If Trey Lance is quarterback, he's probably going to be pulling the ball down on a lot of pass attempts and running and using his legs instead. So there's a lot of downward pressure on Kittle's attempts right there. And so, it just pays to try to get out in front of that and sell them now while you can.
I will add this, Theo. The reason I was telling you I was trying to make a case for Kittle, and I didn't want to come on the show and just throw names unless I could actually put a valid case forward. I looked up the game splits. I thought for sure I had that with Ayuk and Debo with their injuries last year. Like all three of these guys, the whole team offensively was dealing with injuries. So you would think that maybe, the year prior, the Ayuk not being there, and so then I'm trying to find something there, and it was actually a huge difference in the favor of whenever either Debo or Ayuk were involved in the game, Kittle's points were significantly higher in PPR. So that's where I could not make the case. So I just wanted to drop, that information on there. If people do look that way or think that that's a reason to maybe dock Kittle. But you guys covered everything, man. Like the blocking, the uncertainty where this offense goes. If, Jimmy G is not the guy for 2021, we don't know what this offense looks like, right? So just a lot to think about a very valuable piece, especially in leagues in FFPC, like we talked about. So it's a ballsy move. And with all these guys, I'm going to keep repeating it. You're not just trading them because they're listed on our show or they're on an article that you read that says they're sells. These are very, very important pieces in Dynasty. If you're moving them, you need to know why you're doing it. I always to me, it's like, if you're going to trade something, it's because you want to buy something else. You already have your plan in your head. You're not just trading just to trade, guys. So any of these guys that we talk about tonight, we're trying to be very specific on pivots and options and specific trades so that you're not just giving them away as sells. So I want to just, make that clear. I don't think anyone's giving them away, but just to put the little disclaimer on there, you never know.
It's not sell at any cost. It's sell for a profit.
Exactly
get market value, get over market value if you can, because a lot of times with these guys, you can get over market value. Somebody's really in love with them, and that's the guy you want to find in your league. You don't want to take the first offer that comes along. You want to make sure everybody, you can find out who's that person who really, really likes this player.
Especially since we're always talking about FFPC a great deal, that people are so unwilling to move top-level tight ends and top-level running backs that if you're willing to do so, people see that as an opportunity they cannot pass up. This is something I'm willing to overpay for. It's a scarce resource that's never going to come my way again. And I think you might get an absolute king's ransom for some of these guys. And a lot of people view that elite tight end or that top running back as their missing piece to their dynasty team, no matter what. So, Dan and JD hit on a lot of great things right there. But I think you're willing to sell something scarce. And I think that's something that can end up working in your favor. It's a hard thing to swallow to move an elite talent player. But if you could end up getting, 40% more than their value, I think that's something you absolutely consider.
All right, guys, I think I have this set up properly. You're talking running backs and tight ends, definitely two of the hardest positions, to feel comfortable at, especially in a premium with tight end. I'm going to talk about one of the top running backs in the game right now who's coming back from injury in Saquon Barkley. And the reason I wanted to make sure we talked about this guy tonight is, look, you're talking about a guy going as the RB2 to RB, 6, if you're looking at best ball. But Dynasty, he's a top 3 RB right now in most cases. So, Dan, you actually brought this to my attention where it actually got my attention. Like I had seen, whispers out there. But you think of Barkley, you think of a guy, again, talent-wise, no question. The guy's a beast, and you see him on Instagram, you see him out there, you see him working out, so you think, this guy's going to heal really nicely. So I'm going to play this, Dan. You actually brought this to my attention. I'm going to try to share it and play it. I'm really hoping this doesn't sputter or, the interweb just doesn't work with me here, but have a listen to this, guys, and you tell me how you feel about it. I'll just play the first couple minutes. You guys can go look for it on your own.
Hey everyone, it's Raj from 3CB. Giant star running back Saquon Barkley suffered a right knee, ACL, MCL, and meniscus injury known as a, quote, unhappy triad of the knee in week 2 versus the Bears. The injury occurred when he planted his right foot and his right knee caved in. This is quite typical of a non-contact mechanism of injury. The team is still waiting to have surgery until his swelling.
So you saw on the screen there 10 to 11 months.
So the question first becomes, what is the typical return timeline here? For NFL players, that return timeline is average.
Whoa, beautiful. See, we were doing so well. There we go.
Around 10 to 11 months. That means Saquon would very, very likely be back for the start of next season. That being said, the key to understanding his post-injury performance is patience. Typically, we've found that it takes about 18 to 24 months, a year and a half to 2
18 to 24 months.
Anyways, you know what? That's where I was going to end it. So I'll try to get out of it. But that was all I wanted to play. Like I said, guys, go check out the video. Dan actually brought this to my attention. Maybe I'll try to retweet it so you guys can have a look at it. Let me get out of this share screen here. So that was the first thing, and I'm not going to share my screen again because it's obviously not working very well. But there's an article here that I pulled up on TSN. It's like the Canadian ESPN for my fellow Americans. But just talking about Barkley right now, diligent in rehabbing his injured knee. In terms of where he's at right now, he comes in every day. He attacks every day from a rehab standpoint. Judge said he's had a phenomenal attitude and great positive. We're going to make sure that we take Saquon's rehab at the correct rate for his individual body and injury. So to me, if you look at what's going on right now, and I even dropped some tweets again that I was hoping to share very nicely. So we'll work on the internet connection for next time. But just some tweets saying that, he's not going to be available for OTAs, so on and so on. Look, he's not a rookie. I'm not necessarily afraid of him missing certain aspects of the preseason, but I'm going to go to you guys. Dan, I'll go to you first just because you kind of brought this to my attention. And then I'll talk about a trade, or you can even bring up the trade if you want, but we'll drop the trade that we recently made, moving Saquon on a team with concerns for 2021, and I think that's the concern. And Dan, we're in some, fairly big money leagues, big buying leagues, where a season goes by and you go to the next, that's some money you dropped on the table. So you want to win now. And if Barkley's your RB1, you want to know that he's there for you in the year coming up. So Dan, how do you feel about Barkley as a sell? Anything I talked about there, and how you're managing him right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And, for more of my Barkley thoughts, you can go back to last week's Goat District pod. And I talked at length about him then too. But, the main thing to keep in mind is this wasn't just a simple ACL. It's not like what Adrian Peterson had. This also involved the MCL and a meniscus tear that needed to be repaired, not just a trim job, but, like sewing up the meniscus. And the combination of those is definitely a lot more serious. It's a lot harder to recover from. The confidence is a lot more tough to get back. And so that's going to be something that, nobody can guarantee what's going to be happening with Saquon in September. Is it possible that he comes back and he's playing full speed? It is, definitely. But it's also very possible that he's not. And that's not being priced into, what he's going for right now. So you definitely want to, again, look and see, what can I get for Saquon Barkley? Can I get a running back or some asset that I feel is equivalent, that's cheaper, and also get something else added in? So like for our trade, we took on Antonio Gibson. And yes, I know Antonio Gibson's toe. I'd rather take a chance on a player who had a toe injury about 9 months ago, which it will be, at the time the season starts in September, versus a player who had, that massive knee injury, even though it happened in September. It just seems like better odds to me. And again, we've talked about Gibson already as being a good pivot from some of these more expensive running backs because he has so many things going in his favor. We also added to that Curtis Samuel. So it was like we kind of got the double stack in Washington with Gibson and Samuel. And the added bonus is if something happens with Gibson, Samuel is going to be a ton more involved. So it's almost like buying a little bit of an insurance too. And we can certainly, if we need to, we can go out and get us some J.D. McKissick. But, I think Gibson's the guy. I feel strongly that he's going to be a top 6 running back at the end of this year.
Nothing like getting a DM that you were supposed to cut down your roster to a certain amount by yesterday. Shout out to Matt Hicks. Hey, back-to-back champion, man. I can hold the league. So now they got to wait another week for waivers. Too bad. You let me win the league 2 years in a row. I'm going to slow you down to my pace. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, sorry, I had to throw that in there. Theo.
I mean, I don't like hearing there's no timeline for his return. It's just we like answers in fantasy football, and it just seems like there's this shroud of mystery.
Especially at that price.
especially at that price. And the Giants, as a franchise, they absolutely love Saquon Barkley. They seem fiercely committed to him. They want to see him come back. Every chance they get, they're praising the way that he's attacking his rehab. Well, I'd love to hear he's going to be ready for week 1. I'd love to hear somebody say we expect him for week 1. We haven't heard any of that. Again, if you're in Football Guys drafts, you're doing your drafts this time of year, try to add Devontae Booker with that 19th or 20th round pick. You might end up with 2 or 3 starts out of Devontae Booker. You might end up with more starts out of Devontae Booker if this is really a slow process. So yeah, I have some Saquon Barkley. I absolutely love his talent, but yeah, I'm a little concerned as well. I think that the pivot you guys made in our league, the fact that you got Curtis Samuel on top of Antonio Gibson, that's the kind of value I'd look for. For me, I'm most likely just holding Saquon at this point. Kind of what's done is done, but I actually have him. I have Devontae Booker on both teams with Saquon. One team with Andrew Schellenberg, a fellow GOAT, and then one team kind of on my own. I've managed to add Devontae, and I'm glad I did so because I'm a little less optimistic about my teams. Those 2 teams are, teams I view as contenders. I'm hoping he's back, but I'm starting a little worried.
Yeah, I have 1 share left, and it's not a very deep team. So if I don't, it's him and Akers. Like I got Henderson. I got time. So that's kind of what my point was with this, and that's what where Dan got my attention is where money matters. The buy-in might be a bit bigger. I want to win now. If I can pivot nicely, and again, I'm not just giving him away. I'm like Theo. If sitting on it is the only option, I have 0 problems. You still have one of the top pieces in Dynasty right now. So even if his 21, it's going to be one of these where if you don't move him now, you're going to have to hold him till 2022, till he gets back on the field and he shows that he's the man. That's if what we're saying is actually what plays out. But the possibility of it, the fact that it's a pretty significant chance that that's how it plays out. And in 2021, whether that's the first half, the first 4 weeks, or the first 10 weeks, that's significant at his price. So that's why we're just outlining, man. If you can pivot and get a nice return, we did Gibson, and we're pretty high on Curtis Samuel. We thought that was a nice return in that type of league. We were happy with it. Maybe you got a different guy you want to pivot to, but it's something to think about. And all these, that's what it is. It's something, that's what Dan made me think about, something that I wasn't necessarily thinking. I wasn't thinking, damn, I need to move Barkley if I want to compete this year. But you look into it and you're like, yeah, this many shares, maybe I move a couple, and get a little more comfortable. All right, who's the next guy?
I can take that. Let's go back to the screen here.
I love how Dan comes with props. I'm so impressed right now. You don't even understand.
All right, so we're going to move down the list a little bit. We're going to move to the wide receiver 4 in Dynasty football. So we have Jefferson at wide receiver 1, and we could have a conversation about him too. Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, and then we have DK Metcalf. So let's just talk a little bit about DK Metcalf and why he's there, because I don't really quite see it. If we take a look at DK Metcalf and what he's done over the past 2 years, he has a grand total of 5 wide receiver 1 weeks over his entire 2-year career. You can say, well, yeah, he was a rookie that first year. We shouldn't count it as much. And yeah, he got, he got 4 pretty nice weeks last year. But again, you look at, we're talking about how Jonathan Taylor finished off the season as a reason for optimism. You take a look at how DK Metcalf finished off the season here, and that's a little bit more reason for pessimism. And again, I know, it's a small sample size. We don't want to take that too seriously, just like I said with Taylor. But what we do have to take seriously is that he's on a run-first offense. I mean, there's no question that Seattle wants to run the ball. That's a big part of their identity. They changed offensive coordinators, but I still see them running the ball a good bit. They kept all the players they needed to for the running game. And then also we've got Russell Wilson, who this kind of looks like it could potentially be his last year in Seattle. And that's a not insignificant risk for a player like DK Metcalf. Russell Wilson throws a great deep ball. He's somebody that you want as a quarterback for a player like DK. And DK, he's been, if you bought him as a rookie, congratulations to you. You've put yourself in a position to make a huge profit. But sometimes the way to get the best profit is to know when to get out. Like if you were in Bitcoin and you saw $60,000 hit, right? And you didn't get out there, well, it's half that now. DK Metcalf could be worth half of what he is right now at this time next year. And I don't think it's very far-fetched to say that because, again, he hasn't had that many wide receiver 1 weeks. He's on a running team. Granted, his quarterback is very good, but I think, when you've got a player who is listed as the number 4 wide receiver in Dynasty right now, and this is his track record, that's saying it's time to get out, and you can pivot off of DK pretty easily and move to any number of receivers that could do just as well. I mean, heck, you could move to his teammate Tyler Lockett and probably get a couple firsts thrown in besides. So what do you guys think?
I think that Tyler Lockett was a great name to bring up. The Seahawks just gave Tyler Lockett $69 million. It was a $19 million signing bonus. He's very much part of the offense. And DK, anybody who drafted DK last year in redraft, or if you had him in Dynasty, you absolutely crushed. He outperformed his AP, and he finished as wide receiver 7 overall. But Tyler Lockett was wide receiver 8. So there's a huge gap between the two of them. In redraft, there's a rather large gap, and in Dynasty, there's a huge gap. So I think that it's a little closer. It's a little closer than people think. And I think with DK, like Dan said, if you're gonna trade DK, you could trade DK in a some sort of a package and trade DK for AJ Brown. You could trade DK for Calvin Ridley. You could, people are going to give you a top-notch wide receiver, and the fact that DK is so young, I think that you could get a top-notch wide receiver and then something on top. So again, we love DK, but he's absolutely being drafted at his peak. And do we ever foresee a wide receiver 1 overall season for DK? Because I do not.
No.
And he's kind of being valued as a guy who could have a wide receiver 1 overall season. If he's going to do it, it's going to have to be on an absurd amount of touchdowns, which he's capable of, but I don't necessarily see it.
I think DK wins you weeks, but he's not going to win you a season. And I made a move about a month ago now, May 8th. Not the most popular move, but most of my moves are not very popular. Sent James Robinson, DK Metcalf, Mike Gesicki. This is Trade Addicts 5, so it's super flex tight end premium. Gesicki and a 2023 third for Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, Mike Davis, and a 2023 second. So I upgraded my third. I went from Metcalf to Thomas. I added a quarterback and a super flex, and I also own Kamara. And I feel like I prefer Mike Davis at his price than James Robinson. So I'm losing Gesicki, but I'm stacked at tight end in that league. But just an example of maybe I didn't get the farm for Metcalf, but I feel that I put my team in a better position in a league that I want to compete this year by getting myself the New Orleans offense there in Thomas. But, the nice thing at receiver, Dan, maybe not to the extent of tight end, but your pivots don't necessarily need to be young guys like they do at the running back position, right? And it gives you more options. So all these guys that are starting to lose value but have shown you wide receiver 1, like 1 overall type seasons in Adams and Thomas and, Hill. And these guys start to lose value probably before they should in fantasy. And I think that that's a huge mistake that players make especially in these, in the higher stake buy-ins, because, you want guys that are producing now, not what they might want to bring. And when you go from DK to Thomas, you hope that DK becomes Thomas, in my opinion, in production wise, like fantasy wise. So just an example there, and I'm all about it. And you know what? As much as I love stacking, that's a team where I had Russell, and I had that stack, and I did draft DK Metcalf as a rookie. So that was just a little move I made. But I agree with you with DK. He's up there with a couple other receivers that I'll bring up later on, and I'm even gonna ask you guys about a third or a fourth receiver that I want to know if you guys think should be added to that list. All right, guys, before we do anything else,
I got to throw in one more. You mentioned, I believe, Michael Thomas is a possible pivot. You could probably get Michael Thomas in a 2022 first for Metcalf now from the right owner. And that's a smash accept because Thomas is going to rebound big time. He's still only 28 years old. I mean, 28 is not a death sentence for a wide receiver. Yeah, they're not going to have as much trade value moving forward, but you know what? If you're looking to win leagues, this is the way you go.
Exactly. All right, guys, smash the like button. You're watching right now. We're giving you all this goodness, specific players, specific moves, and you hear us talking about it right here. The FFPC Dynasty startups. Starting from $77. We call it high stakes, but guys, $77. I mean, most of my, friendly leagues are kind of in the 50, 70, 80-ish range, maybe 40, on the light end. But so it's a good starting point, and they have every format: best ball, super flex, standard. I mean, Theo and Dan and I are all over these dynasty teams. Theo's got, I think, 49,003 teams now, something like that. That between the orphans he's picked up and the drafts and the tri-flexing and the bicep flexing and whatever else Brock Lesnar's doing over there. But no, man, I all jokings aside, there's a reason Theo is all over these rosters, and Dan and I are on here, playing in the nosebleed type of leagues with, we cone because we like to keep it spread the wealth. Dan, we want to spread the wealth, right? We're hoping to take some ships this year. We gotta step up the game this year and take down some ships in some of these big leagues. But again, guys, best balls, slow, live, super flex, 1 QB, up to $12.50, like $35 starting, easy, up to $12.50. And those 35s, you win those leagues, they get you into some big money leagues. And speaking of big money leagues, $3.9 million in prize pool money, $500,000 grand prize. Right now you save 100, or that's old actually. So ignore the bottom. We gotta take that out. Alex, turn away, please. And then you've got this one also. Actually, no, this goes till June 30th. So this is the Football Players Championship. This is, again, I always say this is how I got into the FFPC. I love this thing, man. It's like $3 to $350 buy-in. If you buy 3 teams, you get a nice discount on it. Right now, the early bird, if you register by the 30th of June and draft by the 15th, you will get a promo bonus of $35, which, as we just showed you, gets you into a best ball. And then, guys, 100,000 grand prize. This is a best ball tournament, $125 entry. I'm going to keep it light. I'm going to go 2 or 3. Maybe 5. I don't know. What do you guys think? You always, these things come up and you're like, hey, I'm not going to go nuts. I'll just go a couple. And then it's like August and you're just hammering, Yeah. I don't know. Anything to add, guys, on FFPC? Tell these people, man, myffpc.com. If you're not on it, they got to be on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the FFPC just has so many different options for, whatever style of play you like. So it's, if you want a tournament, you can do a tournament. If you want standalone leagues, you can do standalone. You can do redraft. You can do dynasty. You can do best ball. You can do all kinds of price levels. You can do super flex. You can do regular. You can do tri-flex. I mean, there's very little that the FFPC doesn't have. So it's a great place to get involved with. You're going to find that it's also extremely addictive. And if you get involved with FFPC at my suggestion and you're addicted now, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to your wife, your significant other, but I'm not sorry to you because you're loving it.
And we will be having the back-to-back football champion on the GOAT District next week in Abib Abitoba is coming on. So we're really excited to have Abib on and sharing some of his amazing strategies. So that's going to be pretty awesome.
This is what I was trying to play when Dan was talking.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
For sure, my favorite movie quote right now, anyways. All right, guys. Seriously, myffpc.com. Check it out. All right, who do we have left? Who have we not talked about dynasty-wise? Because we're trying to be a little. We're trying to help you guys digest these a bit. We're trying not to go like 2 hours every single show. So we're gonna finish these sells, overhyped sells, and we're gonna try to touch on the Julio trade. And I know I'm gonna go last because there's.
I think you've got the last one. I think we've done 5 already.
There. All right. So I've got 2 names, and I'm gonna ask you guys about the third. So right now, I think 3 of the, we talked about the Akers, the Gibsons, the rookie running back studs right now, those young guys that are just flashy and shiny, and you just want them all over your rosters. You got similarities on the receiver end. You've got guys like Justin Jefferson, just had a monster league in a team that, I mean, what were they, bottom 10 or bottom 8, Dan, in passing last year, passing attempts per game? I know they're bottom 10 at least. Offensively. And then you've got another guy that I'm going to bring up in CeeDee Lamb. Again, I love these guys as receivers, but if you look at where they're going top 8 receivers right now. Top 8 or top 6?
Yeah.
Top 6, I believe, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, Jefferson's at number 6 overall. He's the number 1 receiver right now.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was trying to pull up my my mojo. So he's actually Jefferson's going as the wide receiver 2 right now on.
Yeah, so, on FFPC on DLF ADP, he's number 1.
Yeah, so they have here right now. This is like in the last last 30 days or last 6 days? Last 6 days, I think they do on Mojo, and he's got AJ Brown as the wide receiver 1. He's the guy I want to ask you guys about. I want to know, and that'll kind of bleed into the last part of the show, talking about the Julio trade. But I feel like AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Dan, you talked about the other guy, DK Metcalf, and then I think the last guy that you can include in there is CeeDee Lamb. I think if you can pivot from any 4 of those guys nicely to an equivalent production, we talk about Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Michael Thomas, even like a Terry McLaurin for me is maybe a really nice cheaper option. Maybe you guys correct me if I'm off with the price there. How do you guys feel about those 4 receivers? Do you see opportunity there if you hold them on your rosters? Kind of similar to what Dan presented with DK. I'll go to you first, Theo.
So for me, Jefferson, I think is a better argument. Because again, he's wide receiver 1. Lamb, you're not going to get as much as you would for Jefferson, and I think you would be trading Lamb before he peaks. I think Lamb is on his way to becoming great. I would not want to sell Lamb. I think that what's coming for Lamb is a potential Jefferson-like season. I think if you want to consider selling Jefferson for Lamb, you could get Lamb plus for Jefferson. Lamb went ahead of him in every single rookie draft. We like the prospect profiles coming out of college for Lamb, and I think that there's a possibility that Lamb could overtake him. Again, it would be really hard for me to move Jefferson just because, Thielen had 14 touchdown receptions last year. I think that there's potential that Jefferson lives up to the hype, and his touchdown totals go way up. So I don't know. These ones are harder for me. And the A.J. Brown one, I just can't get behind trading A.J. Brown right now. I think some of the communities kind of reacted a little bit with Julio coming over there to somehow downgrade him. I can't see it. I mean, last year AJ Brown had close to 100 targets, and he finishes wide receiver 12. I mean, I think that whether Julio gets 115, 120 targets this year, regardless, I think you're going to see AJ get 104 targets. So I think again, it would be hard for me to sell those guys because I think that they might be worth more a year from now. But Jefferson's already at wide receiver 1 overall, so again, you'd be selling. You know, he's the number 1 wide receiver right now. So,
like does he not?
Those
have
ones
to
give me a lot
finish-
of pause.
Like he's got to finish top 3, right, Jefferson, for you to get your money's worth basically a year from now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Jefferson could
great point.
easily be the wide receiver, 8, 9, 10, something like that next year.
And that's the thing with all these guys. And like, I know I agree with like actually seriously valid point with CD not hitting his peak yet, whereas Justin has. But dude, CD's going as wide receiver 6. I mean, if you look at other guys around him in that range, with what he's shown you, I mean, let's do a little OTC right now. Dan, I'll go to you first because I know you like this guy. Do you rather have Ridley or CeeDee Lamb?
It's very, very close. I mean, for a win now this year, I'll take Ridley. But again, I think that's just because I think CeeDee Lamb's best season is yet to come. I also think Ridley's best season might be yet to come. So, the actual answer is I'd be thrilled to own either one.
Yeah. No, well, it's like that with all these guys, right? And
right.
I want every single player we discussed tonight. I mean,
this was literally one of the hardest shows to prep for that reason. Like I kept putting names in our DM, and then I'd try to put an argument together, and I'm like, dude, I can't even do it. Like I can't even put one together right now. So I'm going to the next guy, and that's what it is. You these are really value, and that's kind of what it is, right? We don't want to put obvious sells. Like that's lame. You go on it,
right.
You put
everybody knows to sell Derrick Henry. Everybody knows, right. We got it. He's old.
Yeah. Mind you. Go ahead.
The wide receivers we're talking about, it's just so these are the kind of guys that you want to build your roster around. It's very difficult for me to kind of move these guys. I mean, the Lamb for Ridley trade right now. I mean, I have a lot of Calvin Ridley, but I might go Lamb. I think Lamb could be this year's, huge breakout star. He looked so good with Dak Prescott. He's such a talented player. That's a really, really hard OTC, JD. That's a really, really hard one. But I'll throw what Darren said. I want both.
You totally want both, and I'll throw this out there. Like I mentioned those 3 guys because I know those 3 are probably the 3 hot, top 3 hottest names as receivers. But I've been buying CeeDee Lamb since the offseason started till now. I sent Juju in 107 for CeeDee Lamb in an FFPC league, which I loved. Dan, what I was trying to pull it up. What's the move we made was it for CeeDee and Barkley?
No, we got CD for Kamara. It was a blockbuster. We had
like a big one.
Kamara and Hawkinson on one side, CD, Irv Smith, 106. There was a whole lot of things changing hands there, and it was a good trade for both sides. Those are the kind of trades I like to make. I do need to jump in here because as the leading drum beater for AJ Brown 101. I will stand this heresy no longer. AJ Brown is the 101, should always be the 101. He is long from having his best season. He's going to have several more seasons in the future that are better than anything he's had in the past. So yeah, AJ Brown, you don't want to move off of him at all. Jefferson, yeah, I move off of him. Lamb, I think we talked about being a little bit too early. Here's the one thing we didn't mention about Jefferson. Who is AJ Brown's quarterback going to be next year? Tannehill. I mean, it's almost certain, right? Who's Lamb's quarterback going to be next year?
Dak.
Dak.
It's gonna be Dak.
Who's Jefferson's quarterback going to be next year?
You're the Vikings fan. You tell us.
I'd say it's 50-50 at best. It's going to be Cousins. I think the Vikings could be looking to move on. They did draft Kellen Mond. I mean, I don't know that Kellen Mond is the answer. I mean, he's a possibility. But, Cousins is getting awfully expensive, and it's getting awfully tough to hang on to him. So, I think there's a real chance that there's a different quarterback there. And again, Jefferson's playing on an offense that wants to run the ball. I think Jefferson has probably had his best season of his career. I'll go out and say that right now. So if you're looking for something that's spicy, that's it. Jefferson has had his best season as a pro.
Yeah, Minnesota were bottom 6 last year in passing. I'm fine moving off of any of that passing offense. That's kind of why I made that move for Cook and Madison, because I do think they're going to run the ball more. Funny, because like I said, Tennessee third lowest passing attempts. But I'm with you, dude. AJ Brown was injured last year. I love Julio going there. Not only are they like probably 2 of my favorite receivers on the same roster, but I just love what Julio will take away from for AJ Brown. But I also love how he opens it up for Ferkser. Like I feel like Ferkser might actually become an even bigger buy, because people are thinking, oh, now he's the 3rd guy or the 4th guy on the. But did we really think Ferkser was going to be? I think it's Pat Kerrane that was talking about how, like, is Ferkser really going to be the number 2 option in an offense? I think it's better for him to be the 3rd, 4th, option, as opposed to being one of the go-to guys. So I kind of like what Julio does for this offense, because he's not really replacing anything if you get the way that offense runs, where I think that people might still downgrade those pieces around him in Tennessee, thinking that he's going to. All right.
Yeah. I think that it's kind of funny to see the way people are reacting to this trade, where people are downgrading AJ and upgrading Julio. It totally makes zero sense to me. I mean, we're getting the whole thing is very odd. What it should do is upgrade Ryan Tannehill for you. But I think that some of the reactions this week were just very, very odd to see, to say the least.
So is this your last opportunity to sell Julio?
I mean,
or are you waiting for that 2 touchdown, 110 yard?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you can get that good first week game out of him, or second week game, then yeah, you're probably going to be better off. But
or the hype building up to it, because
right.
It's going to be hype. I didn't look at their schedule, but whatever that first possible offensive blow up game.
Anything can happen between now and then. When you're talking about older players, you don't want to. If you're looking to sell an older player, and you might just want to hang on to him and just enjoy the production, and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
But if you're looking to sell an older player, with younger players, I'm a lot more willing to be patient. With an older player, if I see a sell window starting to open, sometimes I just want to jump right in on that. And I'm going to go back to Bitcoin. If you sold Bitcoin at 45,000. Yeah, you missed the peak, man. You could have sold for 60. You know what? But you didn't sell at 30. So, and that's where it's depends
how much you bought it at, Dan.
Right, exactly. But if you bought it, but and the thing is, and this is where that analogy falls apart. Whatever you bought Julio for, you've had his production for, since you've gotten him. If you bought him a year ago, you might not be as happy with the production you've gotten. You might have paid a little bit higher price than you should have. But if you bought him, 3-4 years ago, you got a lot of production out of him. I mean, it's a little bit of a sunk cost. It's when you drive the Ferrari off the lot, you're not going to get for it when you sell it what you paid for it. What you get out of it is the enjoyment of driving that Ferrari. So that's how it is with Julio or any of those other, once past greats who, we know they're not going back to what they were again, but you've just got to decide, is that production worth it, or should I just go ahead and take this window and sell now?
Theo, anything to add with the Julio move? We kind of touched it, I touched on it as we talked about AJB there, but definitely a big splash in the NFL and a lot of domino effect, right? So if we look at Atlanta, maybe we go to Atlanta because we talked a bit about Tennessee. Dan covered a bit of Tennessee there, but where do you see the changes in Atlanta? Does my opinion on Kyle Pitts?
Yeah,
if this wasn't a veteran, I think we were initially a new veteran, so I didn't throw Pitts in there, but he would have been for me a nice sell right now. Why don't you touch on the Atlanta offense post Julio trade?
So I think that the obvious winner is Calvin Ridley. I think for redraft and for dynasty, I think that Calvin Ridley could. I think he's one of the better bets to lead the NFL in targets this year. I think that he'll be over 160. Last year, Stephon Diggs led the league in targets. I believe it was 165, 166, something like that. And I think that Calvin Ridley will hit that number. His splits without Julio were always good. He's a very, very talented player, and I think that he's a guy you want in redraft and in dynasty. And I think that I'll take the contrarian view from you. I think that Kyle Pitts right now, you have to start buying into it a little bit, because if you start projecting out the targets, it's very hard for Kyle Pitts to have less than 100 targets. And I think more likely than not, he's gonna touch 120 targets. So I think that, is he going too high in redraft? Even if he hits that target, probably, but it could happen. I don't think you want to, if you're a high volume player, I don't think you want to walk away with no Kyle Pitts this season. Let's put it like that. I think you want to have some Kyle Pitts, because I think it could happen really quickly. I think that a sneaky player that this might bump up a little bit is Mike Davis. I think Mike Davis. I hate to kind of talk up the running back edge guys. I think that a lot of times guys like Mike Davis can get you in trouble because he's never been drafted this high, and we're going to take a leap of faith and draft him a little higher this year. Sometimes those running back dead zone guys can get you in a whole lot of trouble. But I do think that he will see a decent target share from the running back position. So to me, he could be a sneaky winner here. Dan brought up a great point last week on Hayden Hurst, how he's basically free, and I think that that's another name. And one name that I can't get behind is I think that there's been a lot of love on Twitter the last couple of days for Russell Gage. There's a ton of people who want Russell Gage now. I think Russell Gage is a purgatory player. He's not a guy that's going to do anything for you. I think you could find Russell Gage's production in other places, and I think that Zacchaeus is going to compete with him. So I don't get the Russell Gage love, but I think that Atlanta is going to still pass the hell out of the ball. Matt Ryan will throw over 4,000 yards like he does every single year, and I think that the guy I really want is Ridley. I think Ridley is just the smash value. I know we're all big fans of his, especially in redraft.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that Theo said. I think as far as Dynasty goes, Gage and Zacchaeus are, Olamide, they're purgatory players, so they're not going to give you anything really huge. They're the kind of players that can be useful for a week or two, that if you need to throw into a flex, you can throw into a flex. But, you probably want to be spending your final roster spots in Dynasty on players that have a little bit more chance at getting some upside. I definitely like the Hayden Hurst angle there, because I do think, the Falcons paid for him, and they do plan to use him. And I think with Julio going, now all of a sudden you've got room for Pitts and you've got room for Hayden Hurst as well. So and the thing is, we got to remember Pitts is a rookie, and so I think Hurst, even if they played the exact same position, like in the exact same role in the offense, Hurst is probably going to be good early in the season. I don't think they're going to play the same role in the offense. I think they're going to use them both on the field a lot at the same time, and so I don't see anything wrong with Hurst there as well. So the other thing I want to get back to just real quick on Tennessee, relating to Julio himself. This is a little tidbit that came from our good friend and GOAT Randy Young, Memphis at DFF Memphis, and DWZ Memphis. I'm living in the past. And he pointed out Julio has not played 80% of Atlanta's offensive snaps. His best was 2018 when he was at 77.17% of total offensive snaps. I mean, so that tells you what Tennessee just bought, and that's not to say that Julio can't do a lot of good for the Tennessee offense, even at 60% of snaps or whatever it might be. If he can give you several games with 90% snaps, that's great. Even if he's only playing at, 70% snaps for all the games, I think that's still going to be great. So, there's a lot to think about in that he is going to take a lot of pressure off. He's going to make Tannehill better with the percentage of snaps he's getting. But if you're looking for Julio to turn into the Julio of old and, have, 1,300 yards and, 7-8 TDs, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think you got to manage expectations. Go ahead, Theo.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dan nailed it. I think that a successful year for Julio this year is a wide receiver 2 season, and I think that's fine. I think that he's going to get maybe 120 targets, something like that, and I think that he can have similar production last year, points per game wise. I think he's a wide receiver 2. I think AJ Brown is a wide receiver 1, and I think that I think that's kind of the way it's gonna land. But to think that they're trading for Julio Jones to target him 145, 150 times it's not happening. I don't understand people thinking of him as gaining value from this trade. I think he's pretty much the same as if he would have stayed in Atlanta. He's a wide receiver 2 this year.
Simple, guys. Tennessee, 30th in pass attempts. Atlanta, number 4 in pass attempts. Is their defense getting any better? Tell me, guys. Atlanta, not getting any better, right? Did the quarterback change? Quarterback didn't change. Ridley's there. Like, if anything, I'm going to the Tannehill owner with my Julio share, or anyone who thinks that Julio and AJB can both coexist in top 5, top 10 receiver world, or top 15, whatever. I think, like you said, best case scenario, Theo, is wide receiver 2 out of Julio. I think similar to what I said about DK, he might win you weeks, but I don't think he's going to win you your league. So I think don't go overpay on Julio. Maybe AJ Brown becomes a bit of a value because you've got a small percentage of your league mates that are going to dock him points because Julio is there now. Same with Ferkser, in my opinion. I don't think anyone's going to overvalue Tannehill now that they've added Julio, but in Superflex, you never know, right? So if there's an opportunity there, maybe you take advantage of that. You look at the guy who owns Julio, who owns AJB, try to upgrade your quarterback situation, maybe. All right, guys, this was fun. We were very profesh. We kept it at 123-ish. Not bad. It's better than usually we go like we're at least like
2 hours.
Yeah, at least 2 hours usually. So we're trying to trim it down. Trying to trim it down a bit. Guys, don't forget Viridian Global, all the GOAT gear, just comfortable stuff. Shirts, hoodies. I'm gonna cover my face here. Hats. We've got the GOAT shirt. I said it last week. I got the GOAT shirt. I finally received it the other day just because the shipments were being held a bit coming up north of the border here. But man, is that thing comfortable. And shout out to Matty Big Chest because that golden goat head logo looks pretty legit on that shirt. So if you won your 2020 season, this is a must-have right here. You've got the 2020 champ, number 1, the 112, the GOAT. Nice little long sleeve tee. So go check it out, Viridian Global. I know they're redesigning the site right now, and you can get all your GOAT gear on there. Guys, tonight was a ton of fun. These are my favorite shows. And for you watching, it seems like you guys agree, because we did 10 RBs and receivers to buy a few weeks ago, and that's by far our biggest showing with regards to views. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate this, you guys smashing that like button right now, because the like button is like a millisecond of your life, a millisecond of your energy, your fuel of the day, and it helps us more than you can imagine. So we appreciate that. I appreciate hanging with these two studs every week because they make me look good. I have no hair, you know. I don't have any good takes. These guys they do it all for me. They just make me look good, man. So hopefully you guys are tuning in weekly to listen to what these guys have to say. I'll go to Theo first. Theo, man, it's always a blast. Tell them about all your goodness. You're dropping some really good stuff on the Breakout Finder. You've got all the goodness on this network. Remind the people where it's at and give them a little parting action.
Yeah, you can find my writing on Player Profiler and Breakout Finder. I got a couple of articles coming up. I have some stuff in the draft kit this year, which I'm excited about. And yeah, you can find me in the GOAT District. We have some really awesome episodes coming up this month. And yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun June for us.
Yeah, Theo's bringing in some serious, I guess, like he's been reaching out to some high stakes studs. Again, man, we bring proven goodness, guys that have done it. Winners. Exactly. This is where winners come to hang. And Theo has been reaching out to, spreading the guest list really nicely. So guys, make sure you smash the subscribe, you tune in, don't miss any of the goodness. Dan, share your flow. Give us your end of show flow and anything else you want to share, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, if you want to go out there and find a podcast where people are telling you to sell people that nobody wants to buy, those podcasts are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. We all know everybody wants to sell, Derrick Henry, and they want to sell Keenan Allen, and they want to sell, all these guys that are old and everybody knows they're past their peak. If you want to find out, this show was exactly what you need. What players that people really want to buy can you sell? Should you sell? And that's the kind of thing we're committed to giving you every week here. Not just the same takes you're going to see everywhere on Twitter, but where are the takes that are going to help you be a step ahead of your league mates? How are they going to help? How are these takes going to help you win? So please stick with us. We've got as JD was talking about, we got a ton of great guests upcoming. I can't wait to talk to these guys because I've played in leagues against them. I've seen the leagues that they play in that I'm not in, and I'm watching them win a ton. Anytime I'm going up against them, they are a very, very tough out. I feel like I've really accomplished something when I've beaten them. So they're players that are fantasy players that you really, really want to find out about. So hang with us in these upcoming weeks. We're going to make you a better player.
100%, guys. Dan nailed it. Theo nailed it. We hope that you got some goodness out of tonight. Hopefully you can sculpt your rosters out there in Dynasty Land, add some value, add some goodness to it based on some of these moves. Like Dan said, we're talking specifics, man. We're bringing you specifics, and not only specifics that we're dreaming up in our head. These are specifics that we've actually gone out there and done ourselves to improve our own rosters. So get ahead of the herd. Get in the winning column, build that dynasty, man. Tune in every week, at least once a week. We bring goodness. I talked earlier in the show between ball-in, triflexin, commissioner evaluation. I mean, we cover every aspect of your fantasy game to make you better. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you stick with us the rest of this offseason. Like I said, smash the like, smash the subscribe. Guys, stay safe, be happy, and we'll check you all later.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense? Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.